time, been absolutely brilliant. But the point is we have basically done them. Is this still being recorded?
It had gone off, unfortunately, Audrey.
Right, but we're going to have to do it, and we're going to have to do it again. We're going to have to do George Floyd, and we've got to do George Floyd. We've got to do 15
We'll do
minutes on
George Floyd.
Floyd.
We'll do George Floyd.
So
No,
if this has gone off,
it had.
okay,
And I
we'll
just
come back
noticed it. I noticed it. And so it was welcome back.
and do George Floyd.
Oh,
Okay,
George
back
Floyd.
with you in a minute.
So today we are going to talk a little bit about George Floyd, because we sit here on the 24th of May, 2021, and tomorrow will be a year since he lost his life, since his family lost a father, since his family lost a brother. And we deserve to mention him, not just for his loss of life, but for the very important role he played in mobilizing, in his death, mobilizing a movement, a social movement, a social justice movement that said Black Lives Matter. Now, Black Lives Matter had already existed, but to watch a Black man be murdered in front of the eyes of an international stage, and to know that the only reason that we all got to know that was because of one girl's phone footage, or that story could potentially have been suppressed, would not have come to court in the way it did, or for sure the social movement that came at the back of that, because the speed that that video went out through all the various social media was what got that into the public's eye. And it was undeniable. And we saw that. And we talked about 8 minutes, 40 seconds. And it turns out that it was 9 minutes.
26 seconds, yes.
That he'd actually knelt on the neck of George Floyd. And many of us said, I can't breathe, was our mantra for our lives, as it exposed the racism that we had been keeping inside of ourselves, a lifetime's worth of experience that perhaps had gone unexpressed, was able to be shared on the back of what happened to him. So we hope to discuss today what changed 1 year on. Audrey, would you like to say any more to introduce this section?
In the introduction of George Floyd, George Floyd died the day, sorry, let me rephrase that. George Floyd was murdered the day after Debbie Mackey died. I was already completely in bits at the death of Debbie Mackey, because Debbie didn't need to die. And the way that she died on her own, because with COVID, for all the rest of it, she was poorly, but didn't want to put a strain on the NHS, thought she'd be okay. She was poorly for a few days. The family, obviously her family couldn't come near her because everybody was scared that it was COVID. So nobody went near her. And she sadly, by the time she collapsed at home, and by the time she went into the hospital and they opened her up, it was too late. Her organs had already started to deteriorate. So it was absolutely awful. And I felt it so much for her family, and obviously for our pretty special friendship. And then the day after came George Floyd. Elizabeth, nothing has touched me like that, watching that. We know about Rodney King. We know that Black people are treated badly Indeed, in 2017, we had 5 reports that told us in the UK, Black people suffer worse than any other race. We know that. We were told that in 2017. I've been saying it ever since. That was in the reports commissioned by the government that David Lammy did. 2017, we know that disproportionately we do worse. Watching that on television, and then listening to the narrative around it, I found it unbelievable. John Boyega, and we all have to say, nice one and hail to him. He basically opened the floodgates to exactly what you were talking about, Elizabeth, this complicity. We, look at the age of us, and obviously we're looking very nice and sexy and hot, of course. But, in all seriousness, Elizabeth and I have lived lives. We have children. I'm now a grandmother. I mean, Elizabeth was already a grandmother, but I'm now a grandmother, and I've seen my grandchild as well. That's rather special. 7 months before I got to see her, because we did what we were told in terms of COVID. But seriously, we have. I've been in broadcasting since 1989, and I stopped in 2003 because of my illness, and decided to come back in 2016. Thought I'd just walk straight back into a job at the BBC because I've done 13 years at the BBC. I've been trying ever since. I'm a contributor there, but I don't have a show there. But that's another story, and we're not talking about that now. But it is relevant, because the relevance is the fact that I've been trying to get an audience and speak to people, to do something that I did for them already for 13 years, to say, please let me do this again. And I, with all of my experience, and I didn't just work for the BBC, as you know, I worked for Jazz FM, I worked for 9 years in television. So I've worked across the board, plus have 20 years experience in business. So when I go back and say, please, can I come in? I expect to have a conversation with somebody who says, yes, no, why, and this is why. I can't even have that conversation, Elizabeth. So why can't I have that conversation? Am I really, especially bearing in mind that they've all professed that they're into this diversity and they really want to, represent the communities in which they serve, and they want to hear from people who are in the community, doing it, working it day in, day out. You sort of say to yourself, well, how many more things can I put on a CV to make it applicable? So why is it that I'm not being offered an audience? Is it my approach, Elizabeth? Is it something to do with that approach? Is it the fact that I'm standing up here as a woman and saying, give me, as I was told to do, incidentally, by Lord Simon Woolley in 2017 at the launch of Black History Month? He said the time for asking is over, which is all right for Lord Woolley. I've been trying to ask. So we're talking about George Floyd, and you ended on the sentence of inherent systemic racism. I can't say that that's what's happened to me. I can't say that that's what's happened to me, but I do know what's happened to me for the years of my life that I've lived, and the fact that we have, not kind of told it as it is. And that's because you can't bite the hand that feeds you. And, I carried on doing this. And then it got to 2017 and it got to those reports being released. And I heard what, Lord Woolley said. He was absolutely adamant, it's time to take accountability, look in the mirror, get involved. This is the approach that you talk about a seat at the table. We're not even in the room. You've got to work to get in the room, work out how you do it. So I heard that, and then Ola Anabale I interviewed. He's a gorgeous, he is gorgeous actually, British Nigerian international superstar whose album Pointless I Raved. He gave me the honor of the first UK play, and I've raved about forever because of the content, because of what he's talked about. And I used his album actually to help tell the story of Debbie's campaign and Debbie's loss. So Debbie Mackey and Ola Anabale were linked through my show. And I told him about, my plight to get back. And he said, you know, just keep doing what you're doing, Audrey. If it's true, it will come. And that stayed in my head as well, because it is true. And I believe in God. So I've let go and I've let God. So I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to do, Elizabeth, but I don't know why. All I can think of is it must be something. Maybe it's too direct. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, does it? The point of it is I feel as though I've suffered there, and in my everyday life, certainly the slight, the not wanting to put the money in your hand, the silly nonsense questions, where are you really from, the hot enough for
I think
you,
an interesting
the
one is
all of
relay
that is
this event
nonsense.
that happened to you recently, Audrey. I think that's a very
That is
interesting
a
one.
very interesting one.
Do share that with us. Share that
I
with us.
I live in Hale, which is in South Manchester. It is quite nice, and I've been here for 20 years, and I have a huge family, 6 sisters and 1 brother. About how many? I don't know how many nieces and nephews. About 14, and now we're into the next generation. So we're now into the third generation, and I buy my cards from my local post office, and have done since I lived there. And I went down. It was actually actually, Elizabeth, one of the cards I bought was yours. You've not got it yet. It is. It's a sister
Oh,
birthday card. But one
me.
of the cards I bought was yours. I went down. A member of the family had died. I think it's when Laurie had died. And I went down to buy a condolence card, and I picked up a couple of other ones. I picked up yours and Alicia. So I had 2 sisters' cards and Laurie's, and I was also posting something. I was posting something to America as well. So I went to the counter to post the thing to America and paid for the cards there. Now, bear in mind, as I say, I've been going to this shop for 20 years, so it's not like they don't know who I am. And you know, I'm quite distinctive, I suppose, where I live. There's not that many um, uh, black women around. Lot, you know, there's going more and more. Lots of Asian, getting more and more, but they know who I am. That's the point of the story.
Yes, that's the point.
I paid at the counter. So first of all, I'm going in lockdown, so you stand outside and wait. So I waited outside for about 10 minutes because you're only allowed 3 in the shop at one go. No problem with the safety procedures whatsoever. Then you go in the shop. There's 3 people in the shop, so you wait for the 2 in front of you to be served. That's fine, no problem. I get to the counter. Lovely lady behind the counter, a bit of a mate. See her there all the time. Hi, how's it going? Blah de blah. Pay for the. I was posting a card to. I think I was posting a card to Caitlin or something. It was to another. Oh, no, no, it would have been. No, it was to America. It was to Los Angeles.
I still want to know who Laurie is that passed.
Laurie is Kyle's
He
partner.
didn't pass anywhere.
Laurie's dad passed
Oh, you said
away.
Laurie passed.
Laurie's, sorry, I was speaking so fast. Laurie's dad passed
I'm
away.
completely blown away here.
No,
Yes,
Laurie's dad passed
okay.
away.
Thank
Laurie's dad
you.
passed away, so I was
Thank
buying
you.
a
Sorry for that
condolence. I'm
clarification,
speaking
everyone.
fast. I'm speaking fast. So it
But I
was a
couldn't let it go. Yeah.
sorry. It
It's
was a
okay.
condolence card for Laurie's dad who'd passed away, and I bought a couple of
Yes.
birthday cards.
Yes. Yes.
Happy chatty at the counter, pay for the card,
Yes.
post the thing off to Laurie, walk to the front door to leave, bouncer at the door. Obviously, I'm saying bouncer. She wasn't a bouncer. Lady who works there, who I also know, she's in a mask, I'm in a mask, says to me, have you paid for those? I'm holding the card in my hand.
Yep.
I said, I beg your pardon, have you paid for those? And you know, Elizabeth, I was that taken aback that what I did was I stood exactly where I was. It's probably 9 yards, I would guess, to where the counter where the
Mm-hmm.
woman is. And
Mm-hmm.
there's people in the shop, you know, the 2 people in the shop. And I just turned where I was, which was stood at the front door, and I just said, will you tell her, you know, obviously I have a voice that can carry, will you tell her that I have paid for these cards? And of course, the woman behind the counter was really embarrassed. I mean, this is back then. She's like, yes, of course you can. And then this woman at the door starts going, oh, look at her. And I just looked at her and walked out of the door. And Elizabeth, I was going to complain and I was going to report it. And then I just thought, I can't be bothered. I really wanted to do it on the. Do you remember there was a campaign where they were looking to prove? Oh, it was a campaign to prove that Tony Sewell was talking nonsense. and they wanted us to come in and
But you
fill
know,
out
Audrey,
the
but
races.
this one isn't even the one I was thinking of. The one I had in my mind was the one where the woman basically is physically abusive.
Which
That
one?
old woman who tells you, she pushes you and shoves
Oh,
you.
you mean, well,
What
that
on
was, that,
earth? I mean, we shouldn't even have a catalogue of things to share
I
here.
forgot about that one.
I didn't
Again,
forget. That's dreadful.
I
It's
forgot about that
dreadful.
one.
That just,
This
oh,
one, I mean, that
that
one
one's
was really
dreadful.
interesting, actually.
Interesting. My
Well, it was
backside.
because of the age of the lady.
Interesting.
She wanted a fight.
Don't
Um,
make me kiss my teeth.
Basically, yeah, that's a good story, that one.
Yes, kiss my neck
Basically,
back.
I'd
Come
parked
on,
my car. I'd parked my car at the
tell this
disabled.
story.
I'd parked my car at the disabled. I've got a disabled pass, Elizabeth, as you have, because as I've mentioned, and you can see me wriggling around here. My back's killing me, actually. As I've mentioned, I've got a bad back, and so the disabled parking slots are right in front of Marks and Spencer's in Hale. So I went. I love going there, buy the odd, buy nice things, treats, and this, that, and the other. So I'll probably go there, a couple of times a week anyway, but it was nothing to do with the shop. So I arrived there, parked my car in the disabled car park, and there was a lady in the car next to me, and I think I was getting back into my car and she was getting out of a car from memory, Elizabeth. This lady must have been 80, 75, 80. And she looked at me and I looked at her. And any time you park in a disabled parking slot, people are always looking at you as if to say, what do you think you're doing there? Why are you there? Because obviously, if you look at me from the face of it, everything looks good, everything looks fine. So this woman, she's looking at me and I'm looking, and I knew she was looking at me.
Yes,
So
yes.
I looked back at her and I said, are you okay? So she said, I'm just wondering why you've parked in that spot. I said, because I'm disabled. She said, are you? So she said, so I said, yeah. So I said to her, I said, what's wrong with you? So she said, I had a stroke. So I said, well, I've got multiple sclerosis. That's a debilitating disease. It
Yeah,
doesn't get better. That's what I've got.
yeah,
I'm fine. It's managed, but that's what I've got.
yes.
The woman, in fact, the woman, I think she no, I think the tussle must have come beforehand. I think I sort of said to her, "Are you all right?" And she said, "No, I'm not." And I think I went to walk off, and then she grabbed my hand. That's what the
Grabbed your
tussle was,
hand.
wasn't it? She grabbed my hand and pulled me back, and I said,
Grabbed your
"What are you
hand.
doing? Take your hands
Absolute
off me!" And
disgrace.
then she said, "What's wrong with you?" So no, I said to her, I said, "What's he doing?" And she said, "I'm wondering why you're parking in that spot." I said, "Because I've got a disability." What's wrong with you? And then she said, "Oh, I've had a stroke." I said, "And are you okay now?" "Yes, I said, "Right, okay. I've got multiple sclerosis. I'm
Yes,
not going to get better."
yes, that's what I say. I'll be dying from my systemic lupus probably. I'm likely to die. It's terminal. Is that okay with you? So sorry, today is a good day, but if you want to be there when I'm putting my clothes on in the morning and can't actually feel the buttons and can't put
Exactly.
my bra on and might need a friend to assist me, and the friend isn't there and I'm just going to have to go without the bra this time, and maybe I can't put, let me not go into the incident.
Exactly.
We
We've
shouldn't
got
have
so
to.
many things to talk
We
about,
shouldn't
haven't we,
have
my
to.
sister?
We shouldn't have to. But look,
Let's go back to George Floyd. Let's go back to George Floyd, because you asked me
let's
how I
go back
felt.
to George Floyd, because the
That's how I
important
felt on the
thing
day.
is, yes,
How the important thing is, how do we feel? That's how we felt on the day.
that's how we felt on the
Or
day.
living it. The important thing, of course, isn't it, is how we feel now.
Yes. And do we think that there has been any improvement?
And do
And
you?
my words are these. I am very, very grateful that it has been the catalyst to remobilize a movement that was already existing. So let me say this correctly. But I am very grateful for all the organizations, public authorities who've taken on roles and found some money to put an inclusions worker in. And that's a start, because just that acknowledgement that there's some more work that they could be doing. And I think almost all large organizations have done that. But the fact that they needed to do it in the first place is really, I mean, I'd be interested to know who didn't feel that once they looked through the sorts of racisms that people were talking about, the structural racisms, the deeply held racisms that were coming out in the fact that more people were dying of COVID that were Black, because not because of their color and the way that people distanced themselves from us because they thought they were going to catch it somehow because we were the ones who were dying in larger numbers, but actually because of the conditions that many people from Black and brown, I'm going to say Black and brown communities were living in: overcrowded houses, inadequate housing, not getting sufficient money to live on. You know, it was looking at the gender abuse strategy the other day, and we had to share with the person who's putting that strategy together the fact that there is a woman right now with 3 children who's been who's fleeing from her partner, has had to go into a hotel, is being given £20 a week to live on. And the reason why she is there and has had to flee is because the social services gave the ex-abusive partner her address. So she's had to flee. But once she's gone into a different authority, they won't take responsibility for her. Now she's in another authority. I can't say where because it nearly slipped out there, but it's not very far from where I live. So the thing is, these are the types of things that we had to tackle. These are the sorts of things that we were talking about and were able to give voice to when that incident happened. Because it's like, yes, this is happening in the criminal justice system. People are dying right here, right now. People are being sentenced for crimes that perhaps they didn't do. People are being, it's assumed that they were the perpetrator, and sometimes it's been the other way around. People forget to mention the fact that a boy who's been stabbed several times, even if he lives, is now a survivor of a physical crime that makes him more afraid, possibly is suffering from anxiety, mental health problems. What is the comeback on all of that? Where is the equivalent treatment? Where is the equity for a Black and brown person today? So I am throwing over to you, and you shall have the floor to tell me what you would say has been the difference, the change since this crime.
I think there has been an awful lot of talk, and I think there's been an awful lot of promises, and all of these promises, incidentally, this is my bugbear, and unfortunately I do need to, people say, I was doing the program and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an interviewer, and it's like, no, it's not. It's social commentary, Audrey, because obviously you want to get your point of view across as well. But the point of it is, I think there's an awful lot of talk. There's an awful lot of promises. Most of the promises are around helping young and inexperienced people. So they think that by bringing in, and forgive me, I just can't believe I just can't believe how wrong this is. And I don't know what to do about how wrong it is other than keep coming on platforms like this. They believe, okay, obviously it's all about the youth culture, you know that. So sexy looking, young, blah, blah, blah. It is pathetic to switch on the television and see every single advert have a Black person in it. I mean, they think that that makes us feel good. Yeah, it's good that there's Black people there, but actually it's pathetic, Elizabeth, because they've all done it deliberately, and you know that they've all done it deliberately. So you're sort of thinking to yourself, well, okay, you've got the Black and brown people in there, but really, I mean, are you getting it? Is this going to be like a forever thing? So there's all this push about the young people, and I am not anti-young people. Of course, I'm about the young people and very interested in what's happening tomorrow. But I'm interested in what's happening to me and people like me and people like you, Elizabeth, today, because we've still got another 20 years to go. And if our industries are saying it's all about the youth and here's some help for the youth and here's this and that, what on earth is supposed to happen to us? And what I've learned in all of this, Elizabeth, it's time to do it for ourselves. And that is exactly what I'm proposing to do. I,
To do
you
what
know,
for ourselves?
have my own industry, stop looking for somebody to employ me, become my own business, you know?
But so that's the impact of, you know, so you're
I've
going
not
into
answered that
the,
very well. I know
no.
I know I've not answered that very well, Elizabeth, you know, but all the stuff that I've done, the intensity of the broadcasting that I've done, going through Black trauma, going through the equality pay gap, going through pure racism. You know, I did a list yesterday because obviously it's time to sort of, as I say, to get a new portfolio together. And injustice, racial equality, the fight for equity, the fight for parity, racism, the disadvantaged, the way the sort of disadvantaged people, disenfranchised people, it weaves throughout almost every single show I do, because what I'm about is talking to real people. So, good example, I brought in Paul Ashley Wheatcroft to talk about his album. And then we find out when we start talking about his album that he's absolutely a mad, keen activist. He could tell you everything about the civil rights in the States in the 60s. And indeed, that's informed his music, taking it forward. But not only can he tell you about the civil rights and what's going on there, he can also tell you about the activism here in the UK, and particularly in Manchester, in which he played an active part fighting for the rights for Black people. You know, Steve
Well,
Joffa Brown, a poet, completely by chance came across him. The first thing that he shows me is his ode to George Floyd. So I've had great things, Elizabeth. I've had fantastic inspiration from people who've been on my show. It's been
mhm.
saturated, but it's become exhaustive. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to do with all of this stuff inside of me. And then Alison Dispense came along and she gave it a title, Black Trauma. And I started to understand why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And then I spoke to Diane Grayson and she told me about, you know, the equality pay gap. But not only is there distance in difference in the salary between black and white, there's difference between black and black. You know, Africans earn more than Caribbeans. Indians earn more than Pakistanis. I mean,
Oh,
it's kind of
absolutely.
mind-blowing stuff. And this is the stuff, Elizabeth, that you deal with all day, every day. You know
All
this stuff
day, every
already.
day.
So
So what? Yes.
it's been a real eye-opener. It's been almost mind-blowing. It's been exhaustive. It's been scary. And now my conclusion from the end of it, it's time for me to go out and forge it. And that's what I'm doing. So Black Lives Matter, yes, they do. My life matters too. I have to take now back control and start to do something, you know, me to drive forward what I'm going to do. That's what I'm trying to say, Elizabeth. You know, it's this asking, asking, asking. That's got to stop. I'm just going to be doing, doing, doing. Um, you know, I went through a crisis. I went through a part where I felt that I was going to give up broadcasting. That's how bad Black Lives Matter made me feel. Everything I watched broke my heart. Still, everything that I watch that has anything to do with the injustice, the way that Black people are treated, it breaks my heart. I watched Loving over the weekend with Adrian. I don't know if you've seen that film, Elizabeth, but watch it. It's about a guy, it's about a white guy who marries a black girl in the deep south and they put him in prison. It's a great film. It breaks my heart. I was at the point of giving up because all I saw
And
was
we can talk
misery
about that.
and
We can
injustice.
talk about
Anton
relationship.
Ferdinand, Anton Ferdinand's documentary, you
And
know, the
Tom
way that he
Ferdinand's
talks about what
documentary.
had happened to him,
But
9
look
years he
how it
carried a
gave
hurt.
voice to that. Look how it gave voice. It gave that opportunity, didn't it?
Yes,
We hadn't been telling those stories before. And
yeah, I
though
agree.
those things were, you know, the programming had been, you know, if you like, contrived almost, and it was amazing how much stuff there really was there about Black people, because it suddenly appeared. It appeared within minutes, so
What?
it clearly had been in the catalogue, just never being shown. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I
Mind-blowing.
think one of the most interesting facts for me that came out of it, and like, as I say, all sorts came out of it, didn't it? I mean, apart from the Cred report, which we, good grief, I mean, what a lot of nonsense that was, that says that there is no institutional racism. Hello, your own Conservative MP Theresa May admitted that
Do you know what's
years
really?
ago.
Do you know
So
what's really?
so please, there's 13 reports out, or that all say there is institutional racism. So, I really cannot get into somebody who is a confirmed denier of institutional racism and systemic racism, and then puts that in a report. And if you're about to tell me that you're going to interview,
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
jackass,
I'm showing you. I'm showing you what I found is I've worked with Tony Sewell, when I went and did that gig in London, that was with him, for Channel 4. This is a TDK cassette tape, and I know it's back to front. It says on the top, Tony Sewell, 27th of the 6th, 98. I'm going to have a listen and see what he said.
Well, he's a
For my
confirmed
own benefit. For my own benefit.
So, well, that's it. I mean, listen, please feel free. So these are the things that have come out of Black Lives Matter. And I think we have taken some steps forward, because just the bravery some people have, the courage that it's taken from some people to actually tap into their inner selves. There's something that they have been covering up for so long, so much pain, so much heartache, so much distress. And I am very pleased that that opportunity came, that we could finally say, this is what's happening to me. And for some people, yeah, it caused severe mental trauma for them. And for others, it emboldened us. They had crazy people like me who were took to the streets with banners and protests and rallies. And I mean, I wonder, I have a voice out of speaking engagements in the Times that have been shouting from the hilltops. But just the fact that there's somebody out there who is interested in listening tells me that there's a difference. I was doing that anyway. It's just nobody was listening. And so I would say there has been a change. There has been a positive change. And I look forward now to some of those plans that people are trying to say they're going to put into place, to seeing if they will go into place. It won't change the fact that this man has lost his life. It won't change the fact that I could reel off a list of names right now of young individuals in the UK who have died in police custody or have died with no just cause, and nobody's gone to jail. And we're very glad that Derek Chauvin did go to jail, but we're very clear that that was because of that piece of evidence, that girl's piece of evidence. The fact that she filmed it is the only reason that man is now in jail, because it was unquestionable. So what can we say? The fight goes on. The fight goes on to achieve justice for all. I believe in equity. I wrote a course on the back of this, a free course just for people to, it was called 9 Totally Stupid Things to Say About Race. Just because I needed to put something out there to say, just stop saying these things, stop touching our hair, stop thinking that we think it's nice when you say it's fluffy, and stop asking where are we from, where are we really from, all of these things. So yeah, there's been a change.
Do you know, I kind of I mean, I've told you, where I live, and no, actually, let's not do that. Elizabeth, you said that it emboldened you, and you talked about the courage of other people, because that's what the death of George Floyd did. And indeed it did. And I probably went off the point, but indeed it did. It started, John Boyega, didn't he? He was the one who kind of got us all geared up. But the problem, Elizabeth, with all of this, and what I say all the time is, it's great. We all come out and we all tell these stories. And I've told a few stories today, which, perhaps was unwise, but there you go. They're true. Um, you know, so what? And that's what I say all the time. So what? What happens next? So we've told the stories, great. What happens next? What do we need to see happen next for this to have really made a difference? And what you're talking about is all of these organizations where y'all say an institutional racist, basically they need to be broken down and have some black people sitting on the boards.
I mean, that's for sure. We need to be in the senior positions, and that is a fact. We need to be in the senior positions. We need to be in the positions of power. We need to be in the positions of decision making. And when that happens, we will start to see the change we want to see. I'm going to finish it here about George Floyd, because I think we can go back and do our memorial about Debbie Mackey, if we would, and talk about what's so close to home and talk about her. And we'll do that shortly. So let's take a little break.